Ah, crap. I forgot to think of an intro idea. Do you have anything?
No. Do you have anything?
No, I didn't think of anything in the 3 seconds I passed that to you. So we're just gonna go ahead and start things off. Hi, what's up, and welcome to. I also didn't have to take the time to think of what episode it was. Welcome to Talkin Carball.
13. I think
13.
13.
13. This time I literally had no clue. Wow, what a start. To the Talkin Carball podcast where we talk about professional Rocket League. My name's Austin. I'm joined by my friend here, Colin, and we
Did
came
anything
off.
happen? Did anything
Ah,
happen this week?
I don't think so. It was just kind of like a normal week, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I watched any Rocket League this week at all.
No, I mean it's just kind of like dry out there. No content. I just yeah.
I mean, but actually,
Lan,
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 Lan
Lan,
was
Lan.
finally back. Oh my god, this was your first like big Lan that you got to witness, right?
Yes, I became a fan during the pandemic, so first Lan for me.
It's
Uh,
magical, isn't it?
and what a Lan it was.
Yeah. Oh, we have so much to get into. I mean, like first off, we predicted every single match right the entire time.
Oh yeah, we definitely didn't go 4 for 4 in the first round, or like 4 and 4.
Yeah, unfortunately, the alternate world we created last week did not come to fruition.
Not even close.
Mm. But let's get into it. Before we get started, follow all the socials, the YouTube, the Twitter, the Spotify. Join our Discord and talk some Carball with us. But I believe there was actually like obviously there's a million different pieces of news we're gonna get into in terms of land, but there was a little bit of off-season news too.
Yeah, so we'll just go through a few of the main ones. There's obviously rumors flying all over the place, and we'll probably get more into that next week. But Guild announced their new coach as Marky Duda, the Rocket League veteran, and I believe former world champ.
Yeah, season two, Flipside Tactics. Um, Also the former Singularity coach didn't really do too much there, so I'm excited to see sort of the next step in Marky's coaching career is a little more notable.
Yes, and they are rumored to be looking at CRR as their new third member,
Yeah,
but we'll see what happens there.
yeah. If that does come true, that certainly gets me more excited than Bluey did. So who knows? Maybe we'll see Guild again. But they're making moves, which is good.
For sure, for sure. And then we have our first, not official, but shift was kind of like, yeah, this is happening
Yeah,
move, where Heroic will be adding Yukio in replace of Tho to reassemble 2/3 of the old Dignitas roster.
yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of people who are going to be really excited about this. The Violent Panda Yukio connection is something beautiful. They're two of the best passers we have in RLCS. So excited to see that come back together.
Yeah, and now Tho has been kicked from a lot of different teams, so we'll see where he goes next.
Yeah, he's a talent though. He's a bit of a head case, but he's a real talent. So that'll be exciting. He has the potential to elevate a lot of sort of bubble teams to a higher level.
For sure, for sure. And with the LAN ending, I believe the transfer window has officially opened, so we can get official announcements for the next, I think, 2 or so weeks. I don't know the exact schedule off the top of my head.
Things are about to get freaky. And that wasn't intentionally a reference to the player freaky, but who knows? And anything can happen.
Yeah, we have no idea.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of just want to get into it. Do you just want to get into it?
Yeah, congratulations to BDS.
Spoilers.
Uh, they're
Spoilers.
back.
They
We can
are.
just go straight to the end. Everyone knows BDS won the first LAN in 2 years. So absolutely insane. for them, especially with kind of fall split that was below their expectations.
Mm-hmm.
To come out here and win this first LAN is just incredible.
Yeah, and I think Shogun put it best in like the final call when he said BDS were the best team online in Europe, and now they're the best team offline in the world. And that is just like, out of all the storylines going in, I think that's one of the coolest, just because there was so much speculation about how this team would do at LAN last year. And then, like you said, so much speculation this year after they sort of lost that pedestal. So to see them re-achieve those heights is something special to witness.
Yeah, and they deserved, with how dominant they were last year. I think they deserved a major victory here.
Mm-hmm. I think they got robbed of some legendary performances that we would remember for a long time if they had been on LAN last year, and they were able to cement that this time.
But yeah, the entire event was incredible. I want to give big shout out to Psionics for pulling this off. Everything seemed to run pretty smoothly,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just an incredible event that I watched a lot of.
Yeah, I unfortunately my work schedule and just IRL stuff was hitting hard this week, so I was not able to enjoy this as much as I wanted to. But I've been hitting the YouTube compilations, and there's just so many amazing things happened.
My work schedule was also hitting hard, but I was able to watch at work at the view of my
Legendary,
bosses. It was fun.
legendary. Oh man, you wanna we already hit the end. You wanna go back to the start?
Go back to the start. I feel like this as the land this deserves a deeper dive than what we do for most regionals. So let's go into round one.
Yeah.
First matchup of the land, Envy versus Ground Zero, and boy was this kind of like a foreshadowing of how this first few days was gonna go.
Yeah. Uh the theme of the first, like, I'd say 2 days especially, was struggle for NA. In particular, struggle for NA against minor region teams. Ground Zero right off the bat took Turbo Pulsa and the rest of his NV squad to the distance, and that it was not the best indication for NA. They were not living large after this game.
No, they were not, but OCE came to play on day one, and Ground Zero was a big part of that. This, it was a great way to start off the LAN. Envy did come out with the victory, but it took 5 games,
Mm-hmm.
and they were shut out in 2 of them. So
Yeah, and I think this was a very important statement for OCE and, like, pretty much for all the minor regions to have a team take MV to game 5 right off the bat, sort of like undercut that expectation. So that was really really cool to see.
for sure.
Game
Um,
game 2, not so much.
yeah, this went on at the same time. Dignitas beat Tokyo Verity, outscoring them 12-1 in a sweep.
Yeah.
Tokyo Verity, I'll get into a little bit later, but they obviously got smacked in this first game, but they got better every single game.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end, were playing really strong against G2, taking them to an overtime. So this first one didn't go their way,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, but I think they had a great experience and they got better.
Yeah, and what you said there is by far the most important thing, that they improved every time they played. And that's all you could ask from a minor region team at their first LAN, is that they improve, because it's going to be a learning experience, and hopefully they can just take this level of play, take whatever they learned in scrims back to APAC and continue to elevate that region like those players already have.
For sure. The next matchup was BDS versus Complexity, which Complexity came out and they put up a fight.
Yeah.
This went to game 5. BDS had to win 2 overtimes to get this, and the game 5 was a 1-0 game. So extremely tight series, extremely fun to watch. These players were flying all over the place.
Yeah, it's kind of like the most dangerous games for BDS is when a team can match their speed. And Complexity certainly are a team that is going to go like for like with BDS. So that was always going to be a heavyweight bout. I think in the preview I said that it was going to go game 5 and Complexity was going to win. But I think that anytime these two play is pretty much a coin flip.
Yeah, that was super exciting. And then Energy Era Eternity was kind of a look in to NRG's Swiss stage that was not a good start at all. They lost their first game. They did win the next 3, but 2 of them were in overtime, and Energy just did not look right on this first day. But they did come away with a win against the inferior opponent.
Yeah, which I think was a little shocking to a lot of people. You know, these players have been looking forward to LAN for so long, and to see them not sort of be ready to chomp at the bit. But to be honest, pretty much all of NA sort of came out sleeping. So, yeah, they were able to turn around eventually, though.
Yes. And then this next matchup, yes, NA came out sleeping. Sandrock Gaming sweeping G2. Sandrock looked fired up and ready to go. They've been waiting for this moment for years to be able to compete in RLCS Lan, and to come out and just sweep G2 right away is just huge props to the boys for that.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be one of the most iconic moments of this LAN, right? Against, you know, one of the biggest brands in all of NA Rocket League, G2, Sandrock finally with the chance to play overseas. Like, come on, like it literally doesn't get any better than that. And the full sweep, that was just so sick, man. I just like, even right now I got goosebumps and it makes me smile. So awesome.
Yes. And then continuing minor regions doing better than expected. Renegades 3-1ing Endpoint.
You know, like one of the things that stood out from sort of like the public scrim results was in particular out of all the teams, Endpoint was struggling against. They played the OCE teams a lot, but they were also struggling against them. And Renegades snuck a 3-1 on them.
Yeah, so CJ got his first ever LAN win.
Congrats, man.
So congrats to him. The devs pointed out multiple times that they had CJ booked to talk at some point, and I think they end up having to like cancel it because he made it further in the tournament than they thought he was going to.
Yeah. I mean, also huge shouts out to him just for like all the content he makes from like sort of like the pro side, and also, I mean, like bordering the line of caster. He's just such an awesome personality, and it's a big thing to miss out when sort of like OCE gets pushed to the side because he doesn't get to have as big of an impact. And having Lan back and having him back is just great to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then our next matchup was FaZe Vitality, and FaZe looked good. They were firing on all cylinders. Vitality just couldn't match them. 3-1 FaZe.
I mean, I'm surprised you're not pointing out the coach announcement.
Oh yes, Coach AXB for FaZe, getting the boys right.
Yeah, a little something I don't think we've actually even talked about.
No.
Is Colin is one of the biggest AXB fans in the world. That's actually the reason that he's a V1 fan, is because of AXB.
And the reason I'm an AXB fan. Should I get into this?
Oh yeah, dig in the dirt.
All right. I picked Space Station as my favorite team just because I like space, and I was like, all right, Space Station. And I had Austin tell me about the players, and he was like, oh yeah, Cipical's like insane, Arsenal's like super good, and then there's like AXB, no one really cares about him. So I was like, I'm gonna be the biggest AXB stan of all time.
And it was true. He's to this day the biggest AXB stan. But I mean, well, there's a lot to be said about. I mean, he came in for Regional 3 where FaZe were able to sort of like turn things around a little bit, and they looked great this entire LAN. So huge props to him.
For sure. And then our last match of round 1 was Semper versus Furia. Semper won in 5 games. To be honest, I don't remember a whole lot about this one.
But I don't either. I would assume Archie popped off, and I assume that Furia took them the distance.
Yes. Furia had a really good showing. They didn't make top 8, but they competed with everyone pretty well.
Yeah, we'll get into it, but they had a really tough draw, in particular in the first couple rounds.
For
So
sure, for
yeah,
sure.
Semper round one, especially with how well they played this tournament, is a tough look for anyone.
Yeah.
But I
Round
think that
two.
round two.
All right. So first matchup, Dig sweeps Envy.
This
Dig.
was this was
Yeah.
Joria's demon mode, right?
Yeah. Jorah's demon mode was actually in the next round, but it was
Okay.
kind of Jorah's demon tournament, the entire
Yeah.
Swiss.
Yeah. Do you know what his octane rating was?
In the third one, he had like a 2.1, which was the highest rated of like all time.
Yeah. And for the entire tournament, it was 1.5.
Yeah, it was insane. Dig set the record for most goals per game at an RLCS LAN.
They were just unstoppable.
They went perfect through Swiss.
It's ridiculous, man.
Swept Tokyo, swept Envy, and then swept Semper in the third round.
Yeah. But once again, Envy really struggling at the beginning, and they sort of this was once you go down 0-2 in the Swiss, that is a
This
massive
was
massive hole to dig. Well, they went 1-1. Sorry,
Yeah, because they
but
pulled out the win against Ground Zero, but didn't look good doing it. But yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Semper then beat Sandrock 3-1. Semper had a really good Swiss here. Or a really good start to the Swiss, I should say.
yeah, and I mean the question coming in is could Archie replicate his level of performance that he's had online over the past year on LAN, and it was a resounding yes. And Shawset and Casio throughout most of the tournament looked fantastic too. So great looks for Semper.
Yeah, for sure. Then we had BDS versus NRG, a finals preview, although we did not know it, and it kind of went the same way. BDS won this one 3-1.
Yeah.
Energy still looked a little flat. Um, Garrett was quoted saying the land was chalked at this point. um, but yeah,
Yeah, it's the other thing too. I really kind of feel like um BDS are just kind of faster than NRG. And those are like the most dangerous matchups for BDS. You need to sort of find a way to frustrate them, and I don't think Energy were quite ever able to do that. It just sort of felt like BDS always had momentum in all the series they played.
yeah. I mean, Energy's not a particularly fast team,
Hmm.
so maybe they don't match up so well against BDS.
Yeah, who knows? This is like they've only played each other like 2 or 3 times, and Energy are so adaptable that I wouldn't be surprised if over time they're able to figure it out.
Yeah, and then our next matchup was FaZe against Renegades. FaZe looking really good. Took this one 3-1.
Yeah, nothing too much more to add there. Just the continuing of the phase run.
And then in the lower bracket, so losing these matchups was kind of a death sentence, putting you 0-2 and in a real hole.
Yeah.
We had Endpoint versus Vitality. Huge EU matchup here with Endpoint winning this one 3-1, putting Vitality in a hole.
Yeah, and I think Fairy Peak, he tweeted out that he had food poisoning and he basically hadn't eaten anything the first 2 days of competition. So Vitality just never looked quite like themselves. Fairy Peak is such an important part of that team. Alpha popped, not surprisingly, but they just never looked like themselves as a unit.
Yeah. Alpha had a very solid tournament, but the other two did not. I'm looking at the ratings for the tournament as a whole, and Fairy Peak was the fourth lowest rated player in the whole tournament.
Yeah.
Um, not great.
We'll see what happens with that team and that roster, and just what happens with time if they stick together. But this was not the iconic Vitality performance a lot of people were looking for.
Yeah. Next matchup was Complexity versus their old region in Era Eternity, and Complexity showed why they won the region last year.
Yeah, they're just the best team in Sam, straight up. Nothing that doesn't change where you put them. They're the best team. They're the best team from Sam.
Yes. I agree. But Furia made a case, beating G2 3-2.
Yeah,
G2 not a great start here.
no, and it just shows the damage that South American speed can do. You know, you take G2, one of the fastest teams from NA, and they still can't hang. So props to Furia. That's big time from them.
Yeah. And then our last matchup was Ground Zero versus Tokyo Verity. Ground Zero won 3-0, but Tokyo managed to score a goal in every game. So already showing improvements.
Yeah, and the last two were 1-goal games, so definitely could have been winnable.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, round 3. What do we got in the high matchups?
In the high matchups, we got some big time noise. both of these. Dig sweeping Semper 3-0. Thoughts on this?
I mean, Dig was just scoring all over the place. They scored 12 goals in 3 games.
Absolutely ridiculous. This was the 2.2 series you were talking about from Joria's. And I think that after this series, Dig was feeling confident and even talked a little bit of trash towards Semper for good reason. They were unreal.
Yeah, Joris's average score was 812 with 2 goals, 1 2/3 assists, and 3 1/3 saves per game.
It's like he's playing diamonds out
92%
there,
goal,
man.
92% goal participation in 12 goals. He just popped.
Yeah, I hope that this is something we see in the future. I mean, he's obviously one of the most talented and mechanical players in the world, and he's on such a good team now. I think this is just the beginning for this team and for him in particular.
Yeah, they had a really great Swiss stage. At this point in the tournament, really looked like they were the best team.
Yeah, and speaking of teams that had really good Swiss stages, FaZe were able to 3-1 BDS, the first Killer Monkey Moon matchup that Twitter has been screaming about for a year now, and it results in a FaZe win.
Yeah, FaZe looked better.
Mhm.
I think FaZe matches up better against BDS than NRG does.
Yeah,
Um, just the solo playability from First Killer and AJ is insane. First Killer, they were just kind of popping the whole tournament. Or at least the first 4 days of the tournament.
yeah. And if you watch AJ pulls out some of the most ridiculous saves you will see out of anyone in the world, and that's what it takes against BDS. That's what it takes to frustrate them. Is just when they think the ball's in the net when Mark is trying to slot, and against 99.99% of the other players in the world that goes in. AJ has that sort of like Archie or Ahmad capability to just pull out those ridiculous saves. So I definitely think they match up better than NRG does.
Yeah. But that was a really cool series to watch, as pretty much all of these were. Even our next one in the mid tier, Ground Zero versus Renegades, the Australian matchup. And Ground Zero gets their revenge, beating Renegades for the first time all split.
Yeah. Did you see the verbal? I mean, not the verbal meme, but did you see the meme that the Ground Zero coach posted?
I did not know.
It was like a clip from like The Simpsons with like a bunch of people crowded around like two monkeys fighting, and the monkeys were like had the Renegades and Ground Zero logos, and the caption was us traveling all the way around the world just to play against Renegades again. It was really good, but yeah, you're right. They pulled off the sweep here.
Yeah. First time beating Renegades in the split, so it was a good time for them to get that.
Yeah, finally beat
Um,
Fever.
yes. And then the next one was Endpoint versus NRG, and Endpoint pulled this one out 3-2.
Yeah, and I think this is sort of where Relating Wave got his confidence to start talking his shit against NA. But yeah, they took down the best. I mean, this is the number one seed EU, number one seed NA in a round 3 mid matchup, and Endpoint wins in game 5.
Yeah, and as Garrett said, land chalked.
Land shocked. It's over.
It was over at this point. Energy, it was over. There was no coming back from it. They definitely wouldn't have success later.
No, yeah, that was it.
Our next one, NA matchup, complexity 3-2's Envy, and Envy is not having a good tournament at this point.
No, I think in particular, right, like Turbo was struggling on the first days with his shooting. Um,
Turbo was the third lowest rated player of the entire tournament.
yeah. So, oh man, to see like him down there and Fairy down there, I don't think K-Dop is too far behind. That really sort of cemented the theme of the new blood for this tournament, but sad to see Turbo struggling in his home country and back on LAN.
Sure, for sure. And then a minor region matchup, SRG 3-1's Furia in a very high scoring affair. One of those games was 6-4. Um, I was watching it, and I'm pretty sure the game had been going on for like 5 minutes, and
Hmm.
there were still 4 minutes left in the game because of the amount of goals.
Yeah, I mean they played in the finals of the Redls Sweden skirmish, and it pretty much played out like that with no stakes. And then here with the highest stakes possible, this just shows how cracked out these two teams are. That they're still just in a shootout.
Yeah,
But
and I want to give a big shout out to Senzo for coming out of retirement to playing in this and just really showing up really well for himself.
yeah, he's such a smart player. And I don't know if I was just talking to you about this off the podcast or on the podcast, but stepping into Phil O'Khaled's shoes is one of the hardest things to do. He plays with so little boost and is so smart. And so, just for anyone to be able to fill that in, let alone someone who hasn't been playing regularly this season, just absolutely ridiculous.
Sure, for sure. I mean, the whole SRG squad did great representing their region, and I'm so excited to see them at the next LAN with their full main roster.
Oh, dude,
Because
I
while
cannot wait.
Senzo did great, Khaled is a talent, and the world deserves to see him.
Yeah, and they're gonna be on an even higher level, and they made top 8, but we'll get into that more later.
Yep. Our low matchup's not really a whole lot to talk about. Vitality versus Air Eternity. Vitality, this went to game 5, which was not a good look for them,
Hmm.
but they did manage to take care of business, and G2 swept Tokyo. And I think these were the two teams, Era and Verity, that most people were predicting to go 0-3 here.
Yeah. It was exciting to see Era sort of get a little chance to shine in the sun. Vitality did the one thing you can't do against this team and let Astromik catch some heat. And I think Snipes and Math are also like picking it up a little bit. So good to see them go the distance and sort of hopefully get some good experience against high quality talent under their belts. And same thing for Tokyo.
Yeah, Tokyo got blown out game 1, but they forced a 2.5 minute overtime in game 2
Hmm.
against the number 2 seed from NA. So big props
Yeah.
to them improving and hopefully taking their experience back and improving their region. I know Yummy Cheeseman was saying that a lot of these players in Japan and the APAC region are working full time
Yeah.
and really don't have that much time to scrim. A lot of them scrim at like 11 at night after working like 10-hour shifts. And he says there probably won't be that like almost every team in the region is going to be making roster changes to try to change stuff up and get some rosters that are more available.
Hmm.
So we'll see this region grow really quickly, I think.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be a whole lot of investment. Like that's what's going to be able to fuel like when the orgs get involved, that will allow players to go full time into pursuing Rocket League. I know like in other esports in particular like fighting games and in Valorant the salaries in Japan are almost comparable to EU and the viewership in Japan is almost comparable to any other region. So the more involved Japan is in Rocket League, the better we are for it.
Sure, for sure. And that just as a whole, the global interest in this with the new regions, I feel like was shown in the viewer counts
For sure.
across all the platforms. I think this was the most viewed Rocket League tournament ever.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
absolutely massive.
If you want to go through the next round, I'm
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
do a little research.
All right. So our next round, round 4, high matchups, SRG versus Ground Zero. So this guaranteed us to have a minor region making the finals. are making the playoff bracket, which is super exciting. And SRG came out, took care of business, and swept Ground Zero, outscoring them 9-2, and really just kind of looked better. I think they
Yeah.
were the best minor region team, and they showed it by making top 8 here.
And I think like it's I don't want to say like and it's not even close, but it almost they are a tier above Furia and they are a tier above Ground Zero. And they are a tier above a lot of the teams in NA and EU. They are just really, really good.
Yeah, they are. Now, other people are gonna say like maybe Middle East should get more than one spot here. I think Sandrock is a little bit of an exception to
Mm-hmm.
their region. I don't think Ultimates or Falcons would be able to have a comparable performance to them, but we'll see at Worlds because I think they get 2 spots there minimum. So
Yeah. And I mean like the regions that have a team perform extremely well, even if it is an outlier, should be rewarded. So I wouldn't be mad at that. But
yeah,
you're right that like similar to how I was saying, Sandrock is a class above the other minor region teams. They're also a class above their region. So you
and
can't. You,
it's similar in the other regions too, with Ground Zero and Renegades being well above the rest of OCE, and Furia kind of being above the rest of SAM.
yeah,
But our next matchup here, BDS versus Endpoint. A really big matchup here. One NA versus one NA or one EU versus one EU from last year, and BDS beat Endpoint here. Endpoint kind of has some struggles in Swiss uh, in the fall split, so they might be happy to get rid of this format. But BDS moves on here, gets gets into the playoffs as the I believe the 5 seed with this win, and Complexity got the 4 seed, taking down Semper in 4 games. So big shout out to them. They were the second NA team to qualify, taking down a very good EU team. Complexity, not a team that a lot of people kind of dark horse picked to make playoffs, but maybe didn't fully believe they could do it.
yeah. I feel like something I was seeing a lot of. And I did the same thing when we did the prediction podcast, but a lot of people were picking Furia almost over Complexity, and I think this was a reminder that they are the best team from that region, and they are nuts. They are world class talents, and we'll talk about later what they did in the playoff round. But they can go toe to toe with any team, and them beating Semper and what could have been a rock paper scissors matchup against them is something to be said about their ability to sort of diversify their play.
Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, this will go to the low matchups, and this was the first time we had to say goodbye to some good teams.
Yeah,
Um, which was sad, you know, but Renegades came out versus Furia and swept them.
yeah.
They scored 10 goals in 3 games. Their offense was clicking. It was one of the best series Renegades has played. I think they said it was like the best they've played all split, and they just kind of they crushed them. Not that Furia played poorly at all. Renegades are just clicking.
Yeah.
Um,
Shouts out to Fever, scored an absolute clip
oh
in that
yeah,
series. And just for him, like the whole tournament, I know Renegades struggle with some shooting, but they played really well. And for him being a LAN rookie, that was awesome to see.
yeah. Really good to see the Oceania doing well here against Sam, and I think they kept their undefeated record against Sam. I think they've only met like 3 times, but or had only met like 2 times before
hmm
this event, and they got their 1 win here, so they kept that going.
OCE domination. Let's go.
Yes, yes, and then again we have to send one of G2 or Envy home in the 4th round, and unfortunately Turbo Lan ended early.
Yeah, this is just what happens when you struggle in the Swiss. You're gonna get some ugly matchups in the end. So farewell, Envy. We'll see what happens to that team in the future, but G2 were able to sort of start to turn things around a little bit here. So that was big for them. I think if they had gone out here, that would have been a real disappointment for G2.
For sure, for sure. And it was a real disappointment for Envy.
Yeah.
A lot of hopes coming in, Turbo back home, and did not get it done.
That was a rematch of the 21 game grand final of Regional 3.
Yes, it was. But Rita Claus, also Chicago wearing a Santa hat, was too strong.
Iconic. And speaking of iconic, NRG, this is where they began to return things to their iconic form, and they perfect swept Vitality.
The first perfect sweep in RLCS Lan history. Vitality did not look good at all. This whole LAN. Europe needs to get a fifth team that can compete a little higher, I think, than Vitality. Hopefully one of the teams like Misfits or something can step up, because I just don't think Vitality is it.
Yeah, this was worst case scenario for Vitality. I think that this was their floor. And so it's sad to see if this is the end for them, but they have been so inconsistent over the past year, and for them not to be able to find that high level at all on LAN is just kind of shocking.
Yeah, they came out here in a game that mattered the most. It's an elimination game versus NRG, and they just got embarrassed.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about rematch of the grand finals of Regional 3. This is the rematch of the RLCS Season 8 World Championship grand finals.
And the RLCS X regional final champions against each other.
Yeah, and it was a perfect sweep. That says all you need to know about sort of like the directions of these two teams at this point.
Yes. That takes us to the all-important round 5, win and in, lose and go home. Both OCE teams are in this round, so shout out to them for making it this far. Unfortunately, they did both get swept. Renegades by Semper and Ground Zero by NRG.
Yeah, like you said, I think that it should be more so celebrate that they were here rather than like grieve this loss. I think Torsos tweeted out afterwards saying like not bad for basically being put in isolation for 2 years. And I think that that's really true. The fact that OCE has been able to maintain this high level of play, being starved of interregional competition more so than anyone else, is pretty awesome.
Sure, for sure. And Amphis is cracked. I maintain that.
Yeah, and Fever too. Those two are.
Yes.
I think we're gonna start to see sort of like how the NA and EU bubble popped not too long ago. I think we're gonna see a new breed of OCE talent. But it was awesome to see CJ, and particularly Torsos still there hanging around at the top. The fact that like we're never gonna see Drip A again, which is really sad. But the fact that we at least have those two around is still cool.
Yes, and unfortunately, Torsos lost his undefeated record against Garrett G, and might have to forfeit the nickname the Garrett G Slayer.
Oh yeah, he directly tweeted at Garrett like before the Cano stim made me die.
The NA guys are just funny.
Yeah. Did we already talk about Endpoint G2?
We did not.
Okay.
Endpoint G2, probably the biggest game of this round 5. Endpoint, number 1 from EU versus number 2 from NA. This was to have more teams in the playoff bracket between the two regions, and Endpoint took down G2, sent them home early.
Yeah, Endpoint taking out both NA and G2. Got a pretty good resume for being the NA killer, but I don't know. I was gonna say that foreshadows, but it does the opposite of foreshadowing.
Yes. Yes.
Let's ride that amazing segue into the playoffs.
Into the playoffs. So our top 8 teams were Dig, Semper, Complexity, BDS, FaZe, Endpoint, Sandrock, and NRG. First matchup was Dig versus Semper. Dig, the hottest team in the tournament, undefeated against Semper in RLCS 21-22. We know what's going to go, right? Dig's going to take care of business.
Nah.
No. No, they're not. Semper
I mean,
comes out, wins in 7 games.
how are Dig are going against the powers of Harry Maguire? How are they gonna do it? They're British boys. They can't. They just can't. Did you see
Archie
that?
goaded. I did not know.
I think Harry Maguire obviously has some sort of ownership stake in Semper, but there was like a video tweeted of him basically saying, "Good luck, boys. Let's go Semper." And like all the British people in the RL scene were going crazy. It was just a reminder to me just how much of a legend Harry Maguire must be over there. But
Labhead.
yeah. This series felt like Dig sort of beat themselves. No hate to Semper,
Oh, yeah.
but they weren't able to stay at a high level for extended periods of time. Appjack in particular
Yeah.
really struggled in this series, which was sad to see.
Yeah, Jack had a bad series, and maybe it was nerves of, playoffs at LAN. And so I'm thinking though they can come back and grow from this, but not the best performance overall.
Yeah, I think like I was doing a little bit of thinking about this, and I was gonna say like first man is the hardest position in Rocket League, but they're all difficult in their unique things. But what I think is true about playing first man is it's the most difficult position to dig yourself out of a hole. Like I've mentioned like Reddles syndrome before, where it's like when someone is like really hunting for bumps and they're not spending a lot of time on the ball. I think it's really hard to sort of turn things around for yourself. You're not going to get a lot of like easy, like well set up shots like a third man might. And I think that Jack really just struggled to find his feet.
Sure, for sure. But yeah, kind of disappointed to see Dig drop out early since they had such a good Swiss and even swept Semper in the Swiss. But um, the Semper Archies took him down and moved on to the semifinals.
Yeah, there was a point in game 7 where Dig were up 1-0, and then all of a sudden Archie decided that he was going to challenge every ball. It was literally like I was like, was that Archie who 50'd that? And then all of a sudden on the complete other side of the field was like, was that Archie that 50'd that? So Semper Archie is slightly true, but also Shawset and Cassio need to pop for this team to play well, and they certainly did.
Yeah, and I thought Chaussette actually had a really good tournament as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. Could continue to prove that he is a land beast if he can make it there.
Yes, yes. Next matchup was BDS versus Complexity. BDS jumped out to an early 3-0 lead. Complexity won 2 in a row, giving hope to a reverse sweep, but then BDS shut it down in game 6.
Yeah, I think that you had a really good shout when I was texting you about this series, where I was talking about like how I really wish teams would call timeout sooner, and you said that no team should like 2 games in a row is the most amount of games you should lose before you could call a timeout, and I really feel like Complexity just waited too long to try and turn things around here.
Yeah, I think waiting to be down 3-0 it's too late. And once you're down 3-0, or when you call it a 2-1, you lose again, it's whatever. I mean, you're not going to use it later. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah. And it was just a shame because Complexity looked so good in the second half of that series after that timeout. It felt like the entire pacing of the game changed, and they were the ones with the foot on the gas, but the hole was just too big. You were never going to catch BDS from 3-0 down.
No, but obviously big shout outs to Complexity as the 5 seed from NA coming in, making top 8 and giving BDS a good fight.
Yeah, and I mean, if you go even further back than that, their whole story of coming to NA for that land spot when they probably had a much more guaranteed chance to get the SAM spot, just like up there with SRG as one of the coolest stories coming into this land.
Yeah, for sure. Our next matchup was FaZe Clan versus Endpoint. Um, in another NA versus EU, and FaZe continued to just look really good.
Yeah.
Won the first game, lost the next two. I think they called the timeout, and then
Hmm.
came out and won the next 3 games in a row to win this 4-2.
Yeah. First killer was sort of not looking like himself in the first couple games. And I think he said in the interview afterwards there was a moment where he like whiffed the ball and easy when an endpoint scored, and they laughed at him. And apparently that made him really mad. And apparently an angry first killer is a good first killer because they absolutely took the bull by the horns in the second half of that series and were able to take down Saiku in this cracked endpoint roster.
Yeah, in the post game interview, he literally said, "And I took that personally," like in the meme.
Yeah, like the Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
Oh my god. Which makes sense thinking back to the regional one with the phase energy thing. Less
yes,
endpoint didn't learn the lesson. Don't anger first killer. It doesn't end
no,
well.
and they hit some clips on there, but Seiko, I don't think we've mentioned him at all. Had an
No.
insane tournament.
Yeah.
Um, Second highest rated player by Octane across the entire tournament.
Hmm.
The kid is cracked. I think this entire tournament, a lot of people going in were like, LAN experience," and then all the rookies came in and were like, "Nah, screw that. We're faster, we're better."
Seiku, like, I don't think there's anyone in RLCS right now who gets more value from the ground than he does. He's like he scored so many like low 50-50 goals this game, and he scores so many dribble plays. It's kind of like a throwback to the classic thing everyone says, like the Shaw set Valencia LAN, but he is just a world class talent, and to see him do that on LAN was just a sight for sore eyes.
The best at getting value out of ground. Until next time when O'Khaled comes in.
I genuinely that is a matchup I want to see. And speaking of
Speaking
getting
of Sandrock, uh, they played against NRG, and this went extremely similar to the BDS Complexity series, where NRG jumped out to a 3-0 lead. SRG comes back, wins 2 overtime games, and Johnny tweeted out saying that I think his favorite point of the entire weekend was watching Dazarin and James Bot get nervous as Sandrock slowly tried to climb their way out of this hole before NRG finally secured the win.
Yeah, I think the only thing to me that seemed a little different than the Complexity BDS series is I think this one was a little bit more nerves driven. In particular, Ahmad didn't look up to his usual level in this game, and I think that was just sort of nerves, just because it looked like when they settled down. But when they did settle down and they did settle in, oh boy, it became a series. But it was just a little bit too little, too late.
I mean, Energy is just a really good team, and you kind of have to be playing top tier to win that.
Yeah, I
And I'm
haven't gone on my squishy rant yet, have I?
no, I was just gonna say I'm looking at the advanced stats here,
Mm-hmm.
and Garrett G was the fastest moving player of the series, outpacing Ahmad by just a tiny bit. So
the
definitely, Ahmad is definitely nervous to be slower than Garrett G.
the essential analysis.
Yes.
Um, I think one cool thing about like SRG just as a whole is sort of like their parallel to complexity. I think it's going to be a fun discussion to have during this off season, thinking about where they would. It's been a fun discussion over the past like 2 years since SRG burst onto the scene, but where they would place in EU, people have always wondered. Some people saying they'd win the whole thing, down to some people more recently probably saying they'd be battling for top five. And I think that they proved that here, which was awesome.
Yeah, they would definitely be in that discussion for top five, for sure. I mean, they came out and they showed the world that they can compete with the world's best, even when playing with a sub, when they have, good internet.
Yeah,
So, huge shout out to them. Incredible performance, great story.
yeah, they were They were the best minor region team, which is a trophy to hold in high regard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But that will take us to Championship Sunday.
Today.
Today. Yes.
Championship today.
Yes. And our first matchup, Semper versus BDS, was ugly.
Yeah.
It was not good Rocket League in my opinion. Um, Casio was I don't want to say it, but Casio was bad.
Didn't he? I don't think he scored.
He did not score. He had a rating of 2.258 and did not crack 160 points in any game.
That is tragic.
It was bad. BDS won this, and they didn't even do anything like crazy. They just kind of had to play safe and were just kind of gifted goals.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch the series. I got to watch the highlight package, and it was a lot of just extra scoring crappy goals.
Yeah, that's kind of what the series was. BDS scored a lot, but they really didn't do a whole lot to earn them. It was just kind of given to them. Was
Yeah.
not a good series at all.
I like to say that Archie is obviously the best player on Semper, but I think Cassio is the most important because when he's firing, that gives them sort of like a two-pronged attack. And he can be a world-class striker, but they're not going to beat anyone good, let alone BDS if he doesn't score. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, and he scored a lot of goals like earlier in the tournament.
Yeah.
That
He was
at points I thought he was outscoring Archie, and then I checked the stats and he wasn't. But it felt like he was scoring a lot early, and then in this one he just didn't have it.
Yeah, Archie's just a statistical anomaly. But great run for Semper for them to hit top four, especially with all sort of like the congregation of talent that happened in EU during the offseason. I think a lot of people are sort of betting on that top blokes legacy to fade. And they proved everyone wrong. That beating Dig here, they were the second best team in EU on the weekend. So huge props.
Yeah, top four at LAN is nothing to shake your head about.
Yeah, and they lost to the best team in the world. So
Yep.
unfortunate.
And that brought us to FaZe NRG in our second semifinal. I missed a good chunk of this one.
Mm-hmm.
What was your analysis here?
I think it was just sort of like an experience diff. I didn't get to watch like too in depth, so I can't say in particular what FaZe struggled with, but I just think that running into like NRG versus FaZe on LAN like for the first time, I think this was just sort of like always how it was gonna go. I think this is sort of like the king making moment for First Killer, where he's gonna take this personally, and it's just not their time quite yet, is what I'll say.
Yeah, and Justin looked really good today. And in the series, Squishy shot 75%.
Yeah, and that is a good segue into my Squishy rant. But that we got to see a flashback to an old Squishy that we hadn't seen in a long time. Like I think one of the best and worst things about Squishy is he pretty much plays the perfect third man in Rocket League. Where sometimes when you watch him play, it's almost like watching a Rocket League robot, where when he goes up in the air, it's like you can see him thinking about every single possible decision he could make, and he almost never makes like the risky one. He always makes like the most calculated decision he could possibly make. And in this tournament in particular, I think in this series, he was shooting the ball more and taking his own space more, which I think could potentially take this energy roster to a new level.
So that's a great point. Yeah, he looked really good here as a whole. Justin always looks good, to be honest.
Yeah, at some point he's going to have to be entered into the GOAT decision, even if he doesn't get the same amount of chips as the EU players did from sort of like the time when EU dominated. Because how good he's been for how long at this point is just insane.
Yeah, I sent a text to Austin as we move into this finals here, where BDS won 4-1 and 4-3. But I sent him a text in the first series that BDS they obviously 4-1 to NRG in this first game, but Justin still looked like the best player on the field.
Yeah, and
He was doing like everything for NRG.
and the question is, when doesn't he? Like seriously, it's just insane the amount of consistency he has. Like, it's one thing like he passes the eye test, but then also the statistics test. It's just crazy.
It's like you could see in the games when Justin had the ball, BDS for like the first time I've ever seen them gave space.
Yeah.
They were scared. It didn't matter. They still won 4-1, so it was clearly the right decision. But it was like the first time I haven't seen BDS just challenging.
Yeah. And I think like what you're sort of highlighting there is I don't think Justin was sort of the problem in that first series. I think it was a little bit of the supporting cast where they didn't have BDS didn't quite have to respect the others as much as they did Justin just because they weren't playing at their highest level.
Yeah, I think Squishy did okay. Garrett took the most shots and scored the least goals.
Hmm.
So not what you want from that one. But they stepped it up a little bit in the second series, taking that one to game 7. But in the end, we're not able to get it done on Champs Field. But throughout this entire series, um, this final game, game 11,
Hmm.
was the only game to be, or no, games 10 and 11 were the only two games to be decided by more than one goal
Wow.
with multiple overtimes. So BDS won it, but it was certainly not easy for them.
Yeah. I think one other kind of cool thing to talk about, especially in that second series, is seeing the psychological shift from energy. You could tell
Yes.
they were determined to have a good time, especially like Justin was like screaming and laughing throughout that entire series. So I don't think anyone in the world was having more fun than those three players in that moment, even though they lost.
Yeah, Squishy was just kind of smiling and laughing every time they got scored on. And I don't know, I guess it worked because they kind of brought it back a little bit.
Yeah, one thing I did want to talk about was just the level of passing from energy in particular. It felt like every goal was a squishy to just an infield pass. And who knows, that might be like a little bit of a blueprint of how to get some value against BDS just because it's so hard to play off their backboard. But it was cool to see energy fight back.
Yeah. But yes, congratulations to BDS winning the first LAN in 2 years and crowning themselves the temporary best in the world.
Yeah, it's almost kind of hard to talk about BDS. They're just so good. Like,
Yeah.
nothing's new. It's just they're just all three of them are just ridiculously good players.
Yep. And congrats to Mark by 8, who is voted the fall major MVP. So congrats to him. I was talking to some of my friends who had never. I got them to watch the whole, pretty much the whole LAN,
Let's
and
go.
they had never watched any RLCS before. And one of them was like, "This is Mark by 8 guy. I love him. He's an absolute sniper."
And that great analysis from your friend, dude. Mark
Yeah.
by 8's shooting is matched by no one.
And he
And
just loved the ball chasey because that's how he plays, which frustrates me when I play with him. But
yeah, oh, that was what a sick run by them, and what a sick story coming from RLRS and then just instantly dominating RLCS and taking it all the way to this land here. So just nothing but love and props to those players.
absolutely. And we did finally get to hear Mark and Monkey Moon talk, although it was not in English. So I have no idea what they said, but we did hear their voice. They do sound normal.
They don't have Pat Mahomes syndrome. Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that was LAN. It's over, and we don't have another one until March. No.
Till did you say March?
Yeah, it's absolutely
Oh,
tragic. It's so far away.
so far away. But we'll have tons of really good Rocket League in between.
Yes.
Oh, can you imagine if we had like regional lands? Oh,
Oh my god. Maybe in
oh,
the future.
yeah. One thing I would love to see is if there was like, imagine if like for the major there were like 3 guaranteed slots, and then the last 2 were like an interregional play-in, where it's like North America, South America, EU, MENA, APAC, and OCE all had individual LAN play-in tournaments. How sick would that be?
My word, that'd be pretty sick.
Yeah,
Like how like the World Cup qualifiers are for soccer.
yeah, exactly. Some sort. All I want is just some sort of like interregional thing, and then also too, I think it's really cool when you get to see sort of like tier 2 teams play on LAN too, which I think with COVID it'll be a while before we see that. But I just can't wait for more LAN in general.
Absolutely. But that is our last event until March or February. Another thing, February 14th is when the winter regional starts up.
Damn.
So a full month of off season here, which the players have earned. Well, the players at LAN have earned. The players who didn't make LAN have already been sitting home for a while. So they'll be raring to go by that time.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have all sorts of third-party events. Hopefully, there's some sort of Beyond the Summit or something in the future too, where we get a little bit more RL content.
Yes. And we're gonna have the next couple weeks are gonna be roster mania.
Yeah, and us just speculating wildly and talking about random stuff.
Yes.
So, I think well, good to call it there.
Yeah, I was just checking the I was trying to find the official dates for the transfer window
Mm-hmm.
just so we have an idea here, and I'm pretty much here. Transfer window goes from tomorrow, so December 13th,
Mm-hmm.
until January 2nd.
Okay, wow, that's actually not as long as I thought.
So it's about 3 weeks. Yeah, a little over 2 weeks. So
When did you say the first winter regional was?
the 14th, January 14th.
Okay, for some reason I thought you said February, and I was just
No,
confused. Thank God.
January.
Okay, I
Yes.
can live with that. I can live with that. All right, we're fine.
So we have
We're
1 month off with 2 weeks of transfers and then another like week of preparation or whatever, qualifiers, and whatnot. And then we're back at it for group stage winter split.
That was announced.
That is group stage?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's yeah, they announced that at the beginning of the year.
All right, we're gonna need a lot of filler content, so we'll we'll loop back to that later.
If you have ideas, let us know.
Yeah, please.
But yeah. LAN. One. Done.
Land
BDS
one,
champs. EU greater than NA.
first regional major of RLCS 3.
No, we're not calling this RLCS 3.
Colin, we've been calling it RLCS 3 the whole season. I
We
don't know
have
what
not.
All right, everyone. That's a wrap. Peace.
See you next time. Thank you so much for listening. Peace.